It's never about what do I do to get the thing that I want? How do I get the thing that I want? It's what does it feel like to have the thing that I want? What does it look like for me to move through the world with the thing that I want? How would I show up if the thing that I wanted was already mine? And then embodying that state. And through that, you collapse time and space. And through that, your emotional state influences the thoughts that you have. You think different thoughts when you are at a different emotional state. When you are in a state of love, when you are in a state of joy, when you are in a state of peace, when you're in a state of receptivity, you think thoughts of love and joy and peace. You attract new opportunities. You attract new experiences. When you are taking care of your emotional and spiritual hygiene, you allow yourself the space to have opportunities that you would no longer have because you're not carrying around this emotional or energetic baggage every single place you go. You are not unconsciously creating. You are now a conscious participant, a conscious co-creator. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Figuring Shit Out. My name is Vanessa Fontana. I'm your host, and if you're new here, Figuring Shit Out is a space for brave, intentional living in a world of flux. It helps us to courageously embrace what we have figured out and create conversation around what we haven't while surrendering to what we never will. I am so excited to talk with you today. This is a concept and a topic that I think is really important for us to understand and grasp at a spiritual level, and one that many of us already intuitively understand, but is quite hard to put words to. And it is that time is nonlinear. This episode, the fact that time is nonlinear and that when you access time in a nonlinear way, you are closer to creation, closer to God, closer to yourself, closer to everything. That concept, when you grasp that, and not from an intellectual place, but truly from a vibrational and energetic place, your life really begins to change. And we're going to talk about this concept from a conceptual level, because that's really all we're doing when we're chit-chatting and talking, is understanding it cerebrally. But my hope is that you take away from this episode a real emotional understanding of this. And I'm going to include some practices as well towards the end of this episode that you can do to understand this from an energetic frequency level and also practice this. And it's a really, really special thing that I've used so much in my life to collapse timelines, if you will. And I say that with quotations because I'm going to get into it in just a second, why this is not a topic that I've covered yet and why it can be a little bit flashy. And I want to just distill it and make it as simple for you to understand as possible, while still encapsulating all of the beautiful spiritual goodness that exists in it and allowing you to then use that in your life and flirt with it in your own life and connect with it in your own life, because we all have access to these things. And I'm just here figuring shit out and explaining these things to you so that you can figure shit out on your own with them. So without further ado, this episode is going to lock you in and connect you to the fact that time is nonlinear, and you are going to be able to dissipate your past in ways that will allow you to move forward in the present moment in a way that is truly authentically connected to who you truly are, which is who you want to be. So without further ado, let's get into it. Whenever you hear someone talking about quantum leaping or the past and the present and the future all being just conceptual ideas and not actually real, law of attraction, manifestation, they seem like very flashy spiritual concepts. Like, people will say, I've tried to manifest, but I can't. Our logical mind, our analytical mind will tend to go, what do you mean by that? And I think that there is a natural skepticism that we should exercise when we talk about things like quantum leaping, because there are a lot of clickbaity things on the internet that will talk about quantum leaping and manifestation. I want to just start off by saying a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about in this season are around what one might call manifestation. But I really try to stray away from using that word, because manifestation is not this spiritual woo-woo concept. Manifestation is just the act of creating something. And we are creating something in every single moment, because we live in this society where so often we are disconnected from our emotional states and feelings. We don't realize that we are unconsciously creating all the time. We create with our thoughts, we create with our actions, and then our results are created, but we also create with our results. Bear with me. Thought is the most primary form of creation. Thought influences action. You cannot take an action without first having a thought about that action. Action then leads to results. So the thought might be, I have to go to work. Your action is that you go to work, and then the result is that you work. But it's not just an equal input-output, you do this, you get this, because thoughts in and of themselves are bits and pieces of emotional components. Emotions are states of being, and we pack our states of being into these thoughts, into these actions, into these results. So the thought of I have to go to work can inherently be emotionally positive. I have to go to work. It can be inherently emotionally negative, I have to go to work, or based in a need or survival, or it can be emotionally neutral. I have to go to work. And that influences the nature of the thought itself. So behind the thought of action going somewhere, there is the emotional state of the thought, how I feel about going somewhere. So within that thought is I have to go to work and I don't like that. I have to go to work and I'm really excited for it. I have to go to work and I feel indifferent about it. So after all of your thoughts, you can almost imagine that you have this little piece behind it that says, and I feel. Okay? And then that influences action, the way that you take action. So I have to go to work. Negatively speaking, you're walking into those doors and you're carrying with you that energy of not wanting to be there. You're carrying with you that energy of have to. You're carrying with you that energy of ugh. And then that influences your results. So you walk through those doors, you carry that energy with you, you shake hands with someone or you say hi to someone, and immediately you've just now engaged in co-creation with another person. So the way that you are coming in with that state of being is then impacting the state of being of another person naturally, even if they are, they don't seem like they're impacted at all. We are always at this like sub-energetic level interacting with each other. So there are these little nuances that might change that conversation a little bit. They might not be as open with you. You might never know what would have happened if you walked in with a smile on your face. And all of these little things are us creating our reality, us creating our present moment. So we have thought at its most basic creative level. Most of these are influenced by the emotions of the past. That is what has created our present day thoughts for most of us. And the way that we view the past as a story that has been told again and again by us in perhaps an emotionally draining way, or as just a part of our time on this earth, influences how we then think those thoughts. But the thought doesn't have to just be influenced by the past. This is just what it is most normally influenced by because it's the past. And we've experienced it before. We've lived it. We've embodied it experientially. We know the emotions and actions and results that are associated with it. And so then our brain will make future predictions and preemptive decisions about what exactly is going to happen next. We then have the future. Our thoughts can be influenced by the future. This is primarily what we're going to talk about today, how we can access that future state and experientially understand our future from a present day moment. Because the whole point of this time is nonlinear thing, is that if we can embody and feel the things that have happened to us in our past, and we can feel them as if they're happening to us now, and those emotions feel so real, and we can almost just be there as if we're there again, then the same is true for the future. There is no difference. Just because it hasn't technically been lived yet, the present day moment is the opportunity to live it. And so for that reason, there is a creative aspect of the future that we are going to really dive into today. And we're also going to learn how to use that past and change the narrative of it in order to create what it is that we want and to realize who we are. So the diagram that I have here essentially says that at our most preliminary state of creation, we have thoughts. Thoughts are influenced by the emotions that we've carried throughout our lives and the way that we feel about things. And those are influenced by our past, can be influenced by our future, and they're all happening in the present moment. Thought then leads to action, which carries emotional weight, which then leads to results, which releases the emotional weight into the world around us. And so when we release emotional weight into the world around us with our actions, so with walking into a place with joy or walking into a place with anger, what then happens is our actions create these little energetic outputs that flow to the world around us, that resonate to the world around us. And then that influences how other people find us approachable or not approachable. That influences how vibrationally aligned we are, or even in a brain level, able to look for the things that connect to that emotional state. So when you're joyful, this is no new news, you tend to find the babies and the dogs on the street and say hi to them. And when you're in a bad mood, you tend to look on the street and see all of the terrible, chaotic, ugly things that exist in this world. It's just your reticular activating system, a part of your brain that is built in to recognize the things that are important to you. And the things that are important to you are defined by the things that you pay attention to and the things that you are able to really spend your time communing with. And the things that you pay attention to are what your brain and body registers as important things for your survival, important things for the continuation of your evolution. And so if you are unconsciously, of course, only paying attention to the things that have gone wrong in your life, the things that could go wrong, and wrong, you're going to be creating a lot more of wrong. All of this is just setting the stage for me to say the very basic truth that everything that happens is happening in the now. The past is the now. When it happened, it was the now. The now is obviously the now. And the future, when it happens, will be happening now. Time is just a concept that we have created to categorize and label and understand more about ourselves as these humans in this human body in the world around us. Time keeps us in a box. You know, I was just about to say without time, we wouldn't know when to eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But I actually take that back because breakfast, lunch, and dinner are just arbitrary meals that we've assigned to the times of day that tell us when we're supposed to eat, when really, this is a total side note, but I'm pretty sure breakfast was invented in like the 1940s or 50s to sell more meat and to have people eat more meat in their diet in the morning. And before that, the whole idea of breakfast wasn't really something that people did. That's a tangent, but it's really interesting. And it kind of proves the point that I'm talking about, which is that time is a concept. It's a social concept. It's a social construct. It was created in order to allow our society to function. And without it, our society could not function. And of course, you know, we're humans. We've created a society. Our society needs to function. Time has its place. It all starts with the feeling. It is so important to understand that every creation begins first, not even with a thought. Our thoughts are the products of our emotional states, of our feelings. Our thoughts are just things that we have practiced and patterned long enough over and over again that we now just feel so addicted to them and we are just drawn to them. They are really just masses of these emotional states, these emotional energies. And in order to change our thoughts, it's not a cerebral intellectual game of thinking different thoughts. It is feeling different things that produce different thoughts, which then produce different actions, which then produce different results. And so it's about the emotional state and the emotional shift. And that's really where I want to focus in today. And this brings me to a really beautiful topic that I can't wait to dive into in season 4 more, which is the energetic pathway of the heart and heart coherence. Heart coherence is basically when you have a state of biological, emotional, and energetic coherence with your brain. So your brain state and your heart state are in the same place. And what that means is that the only way that your brain can be on track with your heart is if you're using both of them. The heart has 40,000 neurons in it. Before something happens in your brain, before you think thoughts, before your brain signals to the rest of your body to do something, it first happens in your heart. Your heart rate speeds up a little bit. So when you first experience an emotion, you're not immediately going into your brain and saying, I feel so angry, I want to punch a wall, punches wall. First, you're experiencing your heart start to race. You're experiencing an emotion in your body before you're experiencing it in your mind or cerebrally. And so what ends up happening is that your heart communicates to your brain and your brain communicates to your heart. Essentially, what this means is that our hearts are intelligent and our hearts have a magnetic field that extends 6 feet outside of our body. And this is science. I will link some things below so that you can read more on this. There is an institute called the Heart Math Institute. And many of us have believed that, our past has to inform our present because that's what our mind sees. Our mind can only see what has happened. It looks for the logical, but our heart knows that our mind is actually in service to it. The mind is in service to the heart. Before you can change your perspective on something in a cerebral intellectual way, you first feel it. Now, we've all heard the term mind over matter, and we've all heard of people doing these insane, incredible things with their minds, climbing mountains that are taller than the sun, running triple, quadruple marathons, having these insane physical embarkations, or these amazing results of success, building a multi-million-dollar business, starting from nothing, doing everything, being absolutely incredible with the production of creation on this earth. We've all heard of that. And what we'll find across the board is that those people will tell you about their mindset. They'll tell you mind over matter. But I think what they will not so much be able to convey is the emotional state that they had to tap into in order to get those results. Now, I'm no ultra marathon runner, but I have ran a marathon, and I will tell you the way that I did that because I wasn't really properly trained for it. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I will reference this again because I think it's really important. When I agreed to run this marathon, I had a very small part of me that believed that I could do it. And that was the part of me that said yes to doing it. And after I said yes, the much larger part of me that didn't believe that I could do it and had all this fear and doubt grew so big, but I'd already committed to it and I was going to do this. And I had set my mind on doing it and I had set my heart on doing it. And so the first thing that I did was I tied this event to something that I really wanted to let go of in my life. So I had to make it emotional. And for me at the time, it was quitting nicotine. I was addicted to nicotine for 10 years, started vaping when I was 14. It was not something that I was proud of. I had not gone to yoga teacher training yet, but I did do yoga and I meditated and I had this beautiful spiritual practice. And it just wasn't aligned with this identity that I was building, this self-concept that I was building. And I knew that I wanted to quit. I had quit a couple times before and it never stuck. And I was really ready to release this addiction from part of my personhood. And so I wrapped running the marathon into also quitting this addictive substance. And I put it into a pretty little package that I labeled freedom. That was the emotional feeling of what it would be like for me to finish this marathon, which, by the way, I was running it in Paris. It was a beautiful experience. I actually have an entire episode on it if you're curious to hear about all the details. But running this marathon in Paris, crossing that finish line and being nicotine free, addiction free, and being able to just be fully free in my life. And at that point, I was still working my corporate job. I was still very much in between both worlds of creative storytelling and finding my artistry alongside learning how to be a person in the world and survive and be in your 20s in corporate America and hustling. And I was really grappling with trying to understand what my purpose was. And this was before I took the road less traveled. This was before I went to Bali and did yoga teacher training. This was before any of it, but it created the space for me to really step fully into that freedom. And so I ended up using this experience as a way to see through to the other side. So every single time I would think about running this marathon at this time of year, I would see myself free. I would see myself free of all of the weight that I was carrying around, what this addiction represented to me as well. I knew that it wasn't that I actually enjoyed being addicted to nicotine. It was that I enjoyed the escape that it gave to me. And I actually read a book called The Easy Way to Quit Vaping. It's by Alan Carr. And it really, really helped me to reframe nicotine addiction in a way that allowed me to see the addiction for what it was and really subconsciously reprogram the way that I had existed in relationship to it. And since I quit that substance, I am happy to report it's been almost 2 years, and I feel disgusted by it. Like, I don't crave it at all. And that is something that I know many nicotine addicts like struggle with. They're like, I know that for the rest of my life, I'm going to crave a cigarette. I'm going to crave hitting that vape. I don't. I truly do not. And I was addicted. Like, I was fully addicted since I was 14. So it is possible, and it is possible with subconscious reprogramming and collapsing time. So I was able to quit this substance and run this marathon because, truth be told, I did not really train for this marathon the way that I was supposed to train for it. I only got up to a half marathon. They say that you are supposed to get up to 18 miles before you run the full 26. I only ran 13 before I decided in my brain that that was all I needed to be able to run it. I also delayed my training a little bit. I lost motivation at one point of the year, and I didn't have a ton of time to get back up to that mileage. But I knew that that wasn't going to stop me because the work for me was not physical. The work for me was entirely emotional and entirely mental. And so every single morning, I would imagine myself crossing this finish line. I would do this one meditation every morning where I would see myself and I would feel myself crossing this finish line in this state of freedom, in this state of being. I would open my heart to the gratitude of feeling what it would feel like to have accomplished this incredible feat and to be free of this substance that had truly weighed me down and taken so much from me and my self-confidence for so long. And I would just feel into that version of myself. Who was she? What did she do? What did she wear? What was she like? And what I ended up doing accidentally was quantum leaping into this new version of me that could not and did not identify with anything that was not part of that self-concept, including the job that I was at. So after I ran the marathon, I had this huge epiphany. I am doing this podcast full time. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is what I want to do. It was the first time that I ever admitted that on the podcast, that I actually want to be a full-time podcast host. I want to be a full-time writer. I want to be a creative. This is something that I want. Like, I am denying myself of this because I don't feel worthy of it, but I want it. I'm scared of it, but I want it. And it all came from this self-concept, future visualization work where every single time I'd run even 3 miles, at the end of those 3 miles, I would imagine myself crossing that finish line. I would imagine myself in victory, feeling the feelings of what it would be like to run that marathon, to finish that marathon, to have ran a marathon. And I would feel it all through my whole body. And I practiced this feeling over and over again, this feeling of freedom from this addictive substance, this feeling of freedom that comes from knowing that I can do anything. And that is what has led me to where I am now. And I would very, very often reach into my future self when I felt doubt. I would reach into this version of me that knew that I could do it. The same version of me that said yes was the same version of me that crossed that finish line. There was no difference between the two, but throughout that entire 9-month period that I had to train for the marathon, I didn't always feel my future self. I felt my past self. I felt this version of me that did feel so weighed down, bogged down, in self-denial, in self-disbelief my whole life, in insecurity. And that part of me, I really had to extend love and compassion to and understand why that part of me was running the show when there was this other part of me, this strong part of me, this capable part of me that also existed, and make peace between those two parts of me in order to fully exist and choose which one. I couldn't reject the past self. I had to accept the past self as part of the self that led me to the me that is today, that is able to do the things I know that I am capable of doing and did. And so I would often reach into the future, but I would also reach into the past. I would reach into the past and I would see my inner child and I would imagine this part of me that felt so free and boundless and expressive, this part of me that all she wanted to do was express. And I would use that image, that emotion to evoke this sense of motivation in me when the future self felt so far away. When I couldn't tap into the belief that I could do this and I'm crossing that finish line and I got this and I'm going to host my podcast full time, I would just reach back into the past, this version of me that felt a little bit more real, this version of me that did exist, that I did have access to, that was my inner child. And I would allow her to spark my motivation. I would allow those feelings to influence my feeling state now. And through that, I was able to break up all of these emotions of disbelief and truly get to the other side. But the beautiful thing is when I started running that marathon and I was at mile 3, mile 6, mile 8, I wasn't thinking about crossing that finish line because I had practiced it so many times in my head. I knew that it was already done. I knew that I had already done it. I knew that the time was going to pass anyways. Sundown was going to come. I was going to run this marathon. The only thing that I had to do then was simply enjoy it. Show up, smile, look around me, feel into the beauty of this experience, get to experience all of it. And I did, and it was amazing. And this is also a tactic that I used when I was quitting my job and I didn't know what was next. Because truth be told, when I was quitting my job, I had started making some money from this podcast, but it was certainly not enough to fully sustain me. And so for me to be able to leap off that cliff and quit my job, I had to have this belief. I had to reach into the future version of me, this version of me right here, right now, and ask her what she knew that I didn't, and allow her to give me the confidence and almost allow this version of me, this older version of me, 1 year from now, 10 years from now, to guide me forward and connect to that knowing. That knowing exists and it's not outside of you, it is within you. Time is made to feel like it's something outside of us, but it's really, really not. Time is something that was created to make sense of everything, but we have the ability to collapse it by going beyond the regular thoughts of the mind of how things should work or how they can work. Because when our mind is locked, our perspective is locked. And when our mind is locked, it's because our heart isn't open. And so it always starts first with the feeling. It always starts with how do I want to feel? It's never about what do I do to get the thing that I want? How do I get the thing that I want? It's what does it feel like to have the thing that I want? What does it look like for me to move through the world with the thing that I want? How would I show up if the thing that I wanted was already mine? And then embodying that state. And through that, you collapse time and space. And through that, your emotional state influences the thoughts that you have. You think different thoughts when you are at a different emotional state. When you are in a state of love, when you are in a state of joy, when you are in a state of peace, when you're in a state of receptivity, you think thoughts of love and joy and peace. You attract new opportunities. You attract new experiences. When you are taking care of your emotional and spiritual hygiene, you allow yourself the space to have opportunities that you would no longer have because you're not carrying around this emotional or energetic baggage every single place you go. You are not unconsciously creating. You are now a conscious participant, a conscious co-creator. And this is why, to bring it full circle, I do have a bone to pick with the whole flashiness of manifestation and the selling of living your dream life, because the only thing that's separating you from living your dream life is you seeing your life right now in its fullness. At any moment, you can go inwards, close your eyes, and imagine a moment in your life that brought you joy. You can imagine someone that you love looking into your eyes. You can feel that love. You can conjure that love. You can conjure that joy. And it might only last for a second before it goes somewhere else, but that love is truth. That love will lead you. It will guide you. And the longer that you can sustain and practice feeling into that state of openness, of joy, of removing the image of what it looks like, that's a big thing too, because There is obviously this beautiful image that we can create of what we want our future to look like. But at the end of the day, what we want is that feeling. It is the feeling of freedom that got me to cross that finish line. It is the feeling of expansiveness that was intertwined with the knowing that I could do anything that I set my mind and heart to that led me to cross that finish line. My legs were simply being carried by a force outside of me that I can only call God. And that is what happens when you collapse time, when you hold your inner child, when you hold your future self, when you allow these parts of you to commune with you, when you allow the conversation to be had with these different elements of love that exist within you, you touch God. When you are existing in flow state where time is meaningless and you're creating something beautiful and perfect and amazing in the way that it is just because it is, when you are so deeply interwoven with the present moment, with another person, and time is collapsible and you don't even realize that hours have passed, that is touching God. When you look into the eyes of anyone that you love and you do so with a sincerity and a love, that is touching God. That is collapsing time. That is quantum leaping. And sure, we could make it flashy and make it attractive and make it sellable and make it based in consumerism so that you can have all the things that you want and be as rich as you possibly want to be and have all the things and go on boats and live on yachts and all the things. And that's all wonderful. But why do you want it? What is the feeling? What are you trying to attain? It's the love. It's the freedom. It's the expansiveness. It's the joy. And that does not exist outside of you. That exists right now in the present moment. And it can only be created in the present moment. And in the moments of the past where you have felt that, you can call upon those moments to come and remind you. And in the moments of the future where you will feel that, you can call upon that to come to you. You can call upon these things. You are that powerful. You are. And this is also why when we feel really angry or upset or frustrated about something in the moment, and then we come back several hours later to revisit it, we don't feel that way. We can see it differently. We had a fight with someone earlier and then we realize how silly we were being 3 hours later, or we're able to communicate more effectively. It's because we moved our focus onto something else. We allowed it to have space. And it wasn't that our context of that situation changed. It's that our perspective changed, our heart opened, and then we were able to see that situation from a different side. You have this power. You have this power minimally in the way that you go about your day and the little things and the small things and how you move and how you walk and how you exist fully or not fully and how much fun you have throughout the day. And you have this power in big ways in what you do with your life and how you go about your life, in the way that you really decide to be who you are and not pretend that you just are who you are because the circumstances that have made you who you are have made you who you are. You get to decide. You really, really do. I want to be clear that when I say collapse time, all I really mean is be so connected and so content with the present moment that you do not need anything outside of you, which inherently attracts everything. Not needing anything attracts everything, but you cannot not need everything in order to attract everything. It has to just be from a state of true wholeness. Collapsing time means that you are in touch with something that is so deeply part of you, but maybe not something you're deeply familiar with because you're just so lost in the dream of living your life and living it perhaps from the eyes of the past. Collapsing time just means giving yourself an opportunity to see things from a new perspective, to see things in a new way, and to see things in a way that is ultimately beneficial for the evolution of you and your soul and your life, and allows you to feel deeply connected to your purpose and to your personhood and to your soul. So that's what I mean by collapsing time. Collapsing time is just a really fancy way of saying tuning into the deepness, the beauty, the richness of the present moment and creating from there, because that is the only place truly that you'll create anything new from. If not, you're just going to be recreating the past over and over and over again. And I also want to set the preliminary note that a lot of this work, being able to create what you want forward, is a result of healing the past. And these aren't done in sequence, these are done in tandem. So every single time you create a new way of doing something, a new way of being, you respond differently to a situation in a way that allows you to move from your higher self. You allow yourself the space to heal the part of you that wouldn't have reacted that way. You extend love to that part of you. You allow yourself to live forward in a more loving way. And in that, you give back to yourself and to all versions of yourself. When you admit to yourself that you want freedom, all of a sudden, the loud voice inside your brain that has been talking for years and years about why you can't have it and has been pointing the finger at all the ways you can't have freedom, that voice is going to get a lot louder. You're going to have to confront your limits, your subconscious contracts. And that is another topic we're going to go very deeply into during season 4. I touched on it a little bit during my episode called You Are Inevitable, but these subconscious contracts really do rule and run our lives. And when we decide that we want more for ourselves, that we want to enable ourselves to feel into more expansive things, we have to confront the ways that we've stopped ourselves, and we have to really bulldoze that shit. It really is a matter of catching them in their tracks and redirecting it. And you have to really be so aware of what is happening at a under the surface level, which takes some time and some awareness. And so now some practices that you can use and some ways that you can tap into this state and collapse time and allow yourself the freedom of fullness and expression. Very first way to collapse time is with the beautiful tool of meditation. Meditation does not have to be sitting and meditating and closing your eyes and having no thoughts. Meditation can be a experience where you are just so present. You can be doing a moving meditation. You can be doing breath work where you open your arms and you allow yourself to dance while you do it. That's what I do. You could be dancing. You could be shaking. You could be doing anything that is just allowing you to be fully present. Now, that can be a meditation, but a meditation can also just be awareness, simple awareness. This is not sponsored by Insight Timer, but I was using Insight Timer for a while before I've been now switching to breath work, which is just so powerful. I can't wait to talk more about it. It's also going to be interwoven in a lot of my offerings because I'm getting certified in breath work right now. And breath work is just a beautiful way to shift your state. It literally changes your brain waves. It allows you to connect not only with the present moment and to your unique spirituality, but to your biology, your physiology. It interweaves all of the things together, and it's so magical and beautiful. But before I started to do breath work, I was using Insight Timer every day, and I was meditating with a guy called David G. And he has a 40 days of transformation meditation course. And it honestly took me about 2 months. But in this course, you sit in silence for, at the end of it, about 45 minutes every day. And it really taught me so much about the internal monologue inside of my brain and how it directs everything and how this voice inside of my head was ruling my life. A lot of people take a bit of silence for 10 days in something called a Vipassana retreat, which is where you don't talk for 10 days and you sit in that silence and meditation, and you go to a retreat center to do it. And it is one of those things that deeply changes you because you're able to see, when you quiet all of the noise outside of you, all of the noise inside of you. And so I really do think this is a deeply important way to be able to access these collapsing time states, because it allows us to see what we're working with, what challenges and limitations will inevitably come up. Because of course we can open our heart, like we can look at someone we love, we can think about something we love, we can feel into love. But if you're feeling into love and then through the back door of your brain, you are constantly thinking about how to keep it, and you are just so worried about what if, it's not going to stay very long. So being able to collapse time is not just about accessing these future states and these past states, but being able to allow yourself the regulation of sustaining it. That is such a beautifully important part of this. And so meditation, breath work, anything that gets you into the present moment, honestly, anything where you can embrace the chaotic good of life, laughing with a friend, being really silly. I think every hour I just let out a big scream, I'm not even going to lie, or a sound of any sort. I really learned that self-expression is such a beautiful way to be able to energetically cleanse. Several times a day, I'll just literally shake my body, especially if I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety or anxiousness that day. I take care of my energetic vessel by moving it, by allowing it to really just be in its full expression. And this is a beautiful beautiful way that I have learned how to go from the survival state, the locked up nervous system, the frozen state, into a state of self-expression. So much of the work that I've done and what I do and what my life purpose really is turning that survival state into self-expression. For me, I have come from a lot of trauma. I grew up in one of the most chaotic households you could ever imagine, with a lot of just abuse and back and forth and sadness and brokenness. And I have created my life now today in a way that my little self would be so proud of me. My teenage self would be so proud of me. My future self, I know, is proud of me, because I knew that that wasn't going to be what I created. I decided from a very young age that I was going to be a cycle breaker, and that it was going to be up to me to change for the better my life circumstance. And that is everything that I've created. That's what it's from. So I just want to say, if you feel out of touch or out of line with a lot of this manifestation thing, or feeling like you can create your life, or feeling like you can't create your life because of the circumstances, or because of the trauma, or because of everything you've gone through, I just want to say, I know, I understand, I've been where you have been, and it is possible. It is possible to take your survival state and turn it into a place of self-expression. It is possible to take the tragic things that have happened to you and turn them into a place of triumph. It is possible to overcome the things you've been through, and not only overcome them, but leave them in the past behind you. You really do have to bulldoze that shit, and you have to be as equally bulldozing about it as you are compassionate with yourself about what you've gone through. And so another way to practice this collapsing time and space is through the validation that you never received, perhaps when you were a child. So inner child healing is a beautiful way to collapse time and space. It literally allows you to commune and connect with this part of you that is so alive in you, that is so distinct in you. We all have a little kid inside of us wanting to have fun, wanting to play, wanting to create. We all have a little kid inside of us who's just throwing a tantrum half the time because they didn't get seen, or they didn't get heard, or they didn't get what they wanted. And that is normal, and that is okay. And until you learn to talk to that version of you with love and compassion and see it as what it is, which is really just a child in need of love, compassion, care, validation, and support, it will rule your life. It will cause you to reach for things you don't want, to look for love in places where love doesn't exist, to look for love in all the wrong places, because it's yearning for attention, and you are the only one who can give it to that version of you. And so whenever I feel a particular fear coming up or a limit coming up, I literally close my eyes, I put my hand on my heart, and I go, Vanessa, where are you in there? Where are you? And I see my inner child. I see her face. I see what she's wearing. I see what she is feeling. And I just talk to her and I say, what's going on? What's coming up for you? And usually it's a very childlike fear. It's usually something like, I'm scared I'll be left behind, or I'm scared that I'll be judged or rejected. And I literally have to say to her, I got you. You deserve to be seen, you deserve to be heard, you deserve to be loved. And as long as you're with me, you'll never be left behind. Things like that, learning how to create that dialogue with your inner child. And this is something I'm so passionate about. It is something that I'm working on creating, an inner child program for you to connect with your inner child. And I am really excited about it. I'm going to be working with some therapists on it. And I am just really passionate about inner child healing because it's helped me so much. And it's also just something that I know so many people need. And it's one of the biggest reasons I know a lot of people listen to Figuring Shit Out. And I do have free episodes on shadow work and inner child healing, and we'll be creating more and more content and resources on it. But if you're interested in that program, that will be coming soon. Make sure you sign up for my mailing list. Another way to collapse time is to realize how much you're leaning on it to live and rule your life. I have always been someone who loves a good list, loves a good schedule, but when you time block every single moment of your day, you are too concerned with time. You are almost telling time that there's not enough of it and you need to use it for its maximum potential and benefit, or else it is useless. You are making time a means to an end. And so, one, understanding how you use your time, if you respect your time, and as well, learning what your relationship is with time. I am someone, for instance, who has lived with a constant state of urgency. And so for me, healing my relationship with time has meant not planning every minute of the day. It's meant allowing myself the space to move more freely and flow more easily at certain points in my day, and creating those time blocks in shorter ways for me to be a little bit more focused or have more discipline rather than trying to make every single moment a means to an end. This is also a really interesting thing. I know that I'm someone who tends to pick up my phone a lot just to pick it up and check the time. I want you to check your phone and see how many times a day you pick your phone up. This is going to tell you a lot about your relationship to time, your relationship to the need to know, your relationship to your device. A huge way to collapse time and to start flirting with this idea of time collapsing and using it to your benefit to realize and recognize your soul and the truth of who you are and to feel into the greatness of your being in your life is to get off your phone, do a dopamine detox. I have now switched to going on Instagram only once a week, and it has freed up so much space in my brain. I really recommend it. It is something that we do. It's mandated in my program, The Road Less Travelers, which I'm actually not running anymore, but there will be an opportunity to get access to that content if you're interested. Again, mailing list, a lot of new, beautiful offerings and things are coming. So just stay tuned for all of that. In the program, we also do a lot of inner child healing work, and we also do something called the inner elder work, which is where we're communing with this older part of us that's not necessarily like an older version of us, like 10 years down the road. It's like at the end of our lives, and we're creating conversation with this internal wisdom that exists within us by collapsing those timelines. So this is something that I interweave through a lot of my episodes, a lot of my work and programs and the things that I create and my meditations, but I haven't talked about in fullness because it's just so expansive and extensive, and it really just needed its own full episode, and it could have several parts, honestly. So if there's anything in this episode that you feel particularly connected to that I talk to, let me know, and maybe I will create a whole series on collapsing time. That could be interesting. And it could be all little bits and pieces of this in more bite-sized ways. This is like such a huge overview, but it's really important and it's so beautiful. And it's such a beautiful way to commune with these elements that exist all around us. And then the final way I have for you today to collapse time is a heart opening practice. And this can be something short. It can be really simple. It can simply just be thinking of someone that you love dearly, someone that you love so much, and seeing their face in your mind every single morning, feeling their love, seeing them smile at you. It could be a dog, it could be a pet, something that you just feel immense love for. You love this relationship, you love this person, and you feel this beautiful gratitude for them. You feel this love inside of your body. You feel this emotion. You feel what it feels like to feel this after dropping the image. So you feel this love for this person, and then you take away the person and you just feel the love, and you feel into how it feels in your body, and you just feel it, and you see how long you can sustain it for. There is a heart coherence meditation that I will link down below. It is free, and it's from someone who's done a lot of work in heart math. As I was talking about, she's wonderful and amazing, and she has a book as well, but she has this very simple heart coherence meditation. But this is definitely not the end of this conversation. I feel so strongly about this topic. I'm so excited to share it, and it just feels so deeply embedded into what season 4 is. So I thank you guys so much for listening along. I want to remind you that there is merch. You can get your Figuring Shit Out hat with the link down below. I'd also like to remind you that Figuring Shit Out is going to Costa Rica in March, and there are still 10% off spots. So if you are maybe wanting to figure shit out in the forest, open your heart there, be inside of these beautiful practices with me and other people who are just figuring shit out, and connect with them. It's going to be a beautiful time. It's going to be a lot of us girlies in the forest together, and I'm very excited. And if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to chat. Just reach out over Instagram and let me know that you're interested in talking about the retreat. Let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. Leave a comment, rate the show 5 stars, give it some love. I love you so much, and I will see you next Sunday. And remember, if you spend your whole life trying to get your act together, you don't have a life, you have an act. So go and live your fucking life, collapse time, open your heart, live fully and freely as you're meant to, and I will see you when I see you.
You got to look for the redeeming feature. You got to look for things to appreciate. You got to find a reason to make it okay where you are. No, I've got to strive and struggle and try. That's what I've been taught. Growth and expansion is my quest. No, that's inevitable. Whether it comes easy or hard is the question.
The horrible truth is that it's an inside job. That if you're going to get that love and that respect that you've just that union starts inside.
To every experience of growth, there is an equal and an opposite. And that equal and an opposite is what drives you to that light. So you have to start inwards. You have to start first within yourself.